everybody, this is Jennifer with northweststamper.com, and I wanted to go ahead and create a video today of a tutorial I've had on my blog for a while about how to cut a standard card base. Now, those of you that may be newer to card making, I know that it can be somewhat hard to figure out what these dimensions are and how you take your big piece of cardstock and turn it into this. Now, this size here is what's called A2. It's a standard size that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And the thing that's really convenient about that is that that's exactly half of a sheet of 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock. Now, there's two different ways you can cut your cardstock so that it'll turn into this size. And I'll show you how to make those cuts, as well as show you some tips about how to score your cardstock so that you get a nice crisp clean fold that actually has the corners matching, as opposed to sometimes when you try to fold your paper together and it skews. I don't know if that ever happens to you, but that sure did happen to me for a long time. So what you'll want to do is grab an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper. You can definitely use bigger sheets of paper, or I guess smaller, as long as the end result that you're going to want to cut is either going to be 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, so that's cutting it this way, or you're going to want 4 1/4 by 11, and you'll see that that gives you two different styles of folds. So first we'll do what I call the most traditional style, and so you want to take your paper cutter because you want to be able to see to a 5 1/2. I know this glare is a little bad, but 5 1/2 is right here on my cutter. So what you'll do is you'll take your piece of cardstock and you'll put it in long ways. So you want it so that the 11 inches goes along here, so you're going to be cutting along your short side. So you're going to slide this over to 5 1/2. So that's not 5 1/2. That's 5 1/2 right there. Always double check your measurements, because that's when sadness happens, when you cut and you had it on the wrong spot. So 5 1/2, and you have 8 1/2 here. So you cut along, and you'll have two bases. And we'll show you how when you fold this in half, that's going to give you that card base size. Now, so that gives you an option for a card that opens like this, or you can have a card that opens like this, all depending on what you want your card to look like. Now another option, and I just like to mix it up so that I have just variation in what I'm doing that makes it more fun for me, and I think it makes it fun for my recipients. It's also easier sometimes if you're wrapping ribbon to vary how your card opens, so you can wrap around the opening instead of having to cut in a seam. So what I do so for this version, what you're going to do is you're going to take and go to 4 1/4. So now we're having the short way, so 8 1/2 is along your edge, and you're going to cut along the length. So you want to take this and slide it to 4 1/4. So go up, cut down. Now you have two exact same pieces that are 4 1/4 by 11 inches. And when you fold it over in half, you're again going to get that card that's the same size that can either open like this, or if you turn it, it can open like this. So the basics to remember when cutting is you're going to do 4 1/4 by 11, or you're going to do 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. So that's the basics of cutting. So now let's move on to scoring. Okay, scoring. So we've just cut our card bases, and now we're going to pull out a scoring tool. Now you can use your basic cutter like I was using before. You can use this here, and if you have one that has there's a groove in here, you can take your bone folder and put your card base in here and slide your bone folder down with the groove, and that will score. So that's a quick and easy way. As long as you have a bone folder and this cutter, you're good to go. But if you have a rotary cutter, or you have one of these that this isn't grooved in there, you're going to want to use a scoring tool. Or if you're like me, use a scoring tool anyway. These things are super duper handy, and they're great because you can go along and score at pretty much, like in this case, this is the Simply Scored by Stampin' Up. You can score at every 1/8 of an inch, which is great if you're doing boxes, 3D items, fancy card folds. You have lots of options here. So what we're going to do is show how we score to make our card base. So this card here, we have 11 inches by 4 1/4, and what we need to do is take our stylus, in this case, and you're going to want to do it at 5 1/2 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/2. The nice thing with this scoring tool is that you can actually stick there's a groove here, so you know you're getting started at exactly 5 1/2, and you're just going to press in. You don't have to press that hard, just give enough pressure that it slides along that groove, and you'll see that you have a nice little score line there. Now, if you have a piece of cardstock you've cut that's this size, so that it's 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, you can do the same thing. You're going to push it up against your scoring tool's edges, only instead of going at 5 1/2, we're going to go at 4 1/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. Right there. Go down your groove, slide along, and we have our nice score line there. Once you've done that, you can put away your scoring tool for now, and we will get folding. So this is the last step, and this is actually where a lot of people get messed up. And I guess I shouldn't say messed up. This is where people struggle sometimes, because there's often the question of, well, now that I've scored it, which way do I fold? So I don't know if you can see, but there's an indent on this side where I scored it, and then on this side there's a ridge where it bumps out. You want to take your paper, and to get the cleanest edge, fold away from that indent. So this is called the valley, and that's the mountain. So you want the valley facing you, and you want to fold away. That'll make sure that your cardstock is very smooth, because if you fold away from the bump, you may get ridges. So nice and smooth. And then here's what I do to try to make my edges stay nice and lined up. And so instead of doing that when you're done, line them up so that your corners are touching and set it down. And I'll hold it so that I'm holding down my edges. And this is where the bone folder comes in. So you want to take your bone folder, and I will actually run it up the middle. You want to make sure you get that middle part creased first, and then you want to go out to the sides. Because even when you're using a bone folder, if you start on one end and go down, you can still be adding pressure, which will end up pulling your card front with the bone folder. So that's why you want to start in the middle and go out. That will keep the paper from pulling with the bone folder. So when you're done, you have a nice flat piece of cardstock. So again, if you're doing it with a piece of paper like this, same thing. Find your valley, fold away, line up your corners, set it down and hold them. And so again, this is why it's nice that they're longer. You can kind of make sure you stay lined up, slide all the way to the middle, so you've kind of pushed that middle part down, and then from there go out to the edges. And one last tip with the bone folders, use the edges. They should be, most good bone folders are rounded. This one is the Stampin' Up! Bone folder, and the nice thing is all of the edges are beveled so that you can have a smooth edge. It's not going to crease or make lines in your paper. But even still, go at an angle, and I'll see if I can show you what I'm talking about here. I kind of have it like that so that it isn't flat. I'm not using the point, I'm using the side. But just sort of have it at an angle so that we're using that rounded side to push it down. So there you have it, your standard card base, either in this traditional orientation, or flip it, or your tall orientation, or flip it. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon.